So good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the third Seneca County Community Forum on Police Reform and Reinvention. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules coming out tonight. My name is Bob McKeveny. I'm a Seneca County resident. I'm a retired school superintendent, and I'm serving as a moderator and facilitator for tonight's forum. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce a few people to you so you know who you're interacting with tonight. I'd like to start by welcoming Senator Pam Helming, Chief Jason Godley, Waterloo Police Department, Sergeant Dave Page from the Waterloo Police Department, he's in the back, Sheriff Tim Luce, Seneca County, Under Sheriff John Clear, Seneca County, Lieutenant Tim Thompson, Seneca County, he's in the back here, Chief Deputy Kip Goodman, Seneca County, Chief Stu Peenstra, Seneca Falls Police Department, Mark Sinkowitz, Seneca County District Attorney, Michael Miras, Seneca County Public Defender, Caitlin Laskowski, Criminal Justice Advisory Board Chairperson, Deb Rickerson, Criminal Justice Advisory Board member and Seneca County Probation, back here. Margaret Morse, Director of Community Services. Jack O'Connor, Waterloo Mayor. Rich Richardson, Interlaken Mayor. Mitch Rose, Seneca County Manager. Suffredini, Waterloo Village Public Safety Committee member. And hopefully I didn't miss anybody. If I did, help me out. We'd also like to give a big thank you to the Waterloo Fire Department, Chief Mark Shaw, but also Chief Godley and Jack O'Connor for hosting us tonight. Thank you for having us here in Waterloo. So to get started, Senator Helming, would you want to offer a couple comments before we begin?
Sure. First, Bob, I'd like to say thank you to you for volunteering your time to serve in this capacity. And to all of the law enforcement agencies, departments, offices that are here tonight, thank you for your collaboration on this effort. It was a good meeting last night. There was some good feedback from the people who attended the meeting. I want to thank everyone who is here. So appreciate your input on this subject. The more input that we receive from you, the better the final document is going to be. I know there'll be a lot of talk about the survey and a lot of encouragement to go online and to fill out that survey. So please do. Again, thank you so much to everyone who's involved in this effort.
Thank you, Senator. So on the slide in front of you, and I'll share information from some of the slides. I'm not going to read them all to you. We're going to post these slides after tonight's meeting. But this talks about our big idea, which is a recurring theme throughout this presentation tonight in this forum, is the idea of community-oriented policing as a strategy of policing that focuses on building ties and working closely with community members. So I ask you to keep that in mind as a recurring theme as we work towards this police reform and reinvention initiative that's underway.
Should I interrupt you?
Yes.
I don't think the police have to be reformed, because I think they do one hell of a job. Not only that, but the people that mistreat them, they're the ones that we have to work on to make sure they understand what the rules are, because you just can't let them do what they want.
So, point well taken, and thank you for saying that. Big compliment and shout out to the law enforcement agencies and people that are here. But I think this initiative will also give us opportunities to implement initiatives to do just what you're saying, to enhance those community ties so that we can have working relationships on both sides. It goes both ways. I agree with you.
Respect.
Yes, absolutely. So as we go through this, that's a theme that exists. As I said, it's an existing principle in Seneca County. It's not something we're working towards. We continually want to get better, and we want to increase those partnerships. So in front of you is the agenda for tonight. So We also have participants via the Zoom platform. So they're muted so as not to interfere with the presentation audio here, but they're able to participate with us through the chat feature. So if they would like to offer questions at any time, they can. Margaret will indicate to me whether there are questions coming in off the Zoom platform. So as you can see, this is where we're going to go tonight. We're hopeful to be about an hour, might go a little over. I think last night we went about 70 minutes, but we're able to have some good interaction. Open-ended, interactive, so if you'd like to offer a question, comment at any time, just raise your hand and we'll build that right in, just as was done before. So the next slide we'll talk about ground rules for tonight, and there we go. And so the one that I want to talk about is the idea that all comments are appreciated and valued, and that will say if they respect others' opinions. But once again, this is a reform initiative that will be based on community input. So once again, we need that information. So a review of the governor's executive order, which was signed on June 12th, requires local government leaders to convene their local police leader to develop a reform plan that includes input, information, and feedback from community residents. It's a 10-month process, began in June, and must be completed and submitted with approval by April 1st, 2021. You're going to see a timeline a little later that our local law enforcement leaders will be working towards that and implementing within that time frame, so the approval will come before April 1st. Okay, I lost it. So the next one continues. So the process started the previous 2 months. Seneca County started with a county collaboration by law enforcement leaders and the Criminal Justice Advisory Board. And I'll show you later a slide which gives you a large list of people that served on the Criminal Justice Advisory Board. They've organized for 2 months with a county collaborative that wasn't required, but went above and beyond the scope of the executive order. It continues this week and this month with community forums and surveys where we gain community residents' feedback and information. While we started with a county collaborative, each law enforcement agency is charged with developing its own plan. So while there be some best practices from a county perspective, each community will go back and develop its own plan and have its own governing body look to approve that plan. So the intended outcomes, okay, so these are the required elements in the executive order. I'm going to read these to you because I don't know if you can see them all in the back. But it says the reform plan must address the following: the use of force by police officers, crowd management, community policing, implicit bias awareness training, procedural justice, de-escalation training and practices, law enforcement assisted diversion programs, community-based outreach and conflict resolution, a transparent citizen complaint disposition procedure, hotspot policing, focused deterrence, crime prevention, violence prevention and reduction interventions, and model policies and guidelines. So once completed, these are the things that need to be evident in each community's plan. So I don't know if you have any questions or comments regarding these. You can certainly ask now or bring them up later. But as I said earlier, this slide deck will be available online, and at the end we'll tell you how you can access that and tell other people where they can access that. So the intended outcomes of this interactive reform plan development process are threefold: awareness, partnerships, and funding. We want to increase the awareness, we want to increase partnerships and enhance partnerships, and we also want to maintain funding for initiatives that are going on in this county. So that becomes critically important moving forward. So this plan hopefully drives those intended outcomes. This is that county collaborative that I talked about, and you can see the picture there of Seneca County. It speaks volumes to the law enforcement leaders in this county that they spent the past 2 months coming together to start to organize around this reform plan initiative. You also will see on there the opt-in partners, the Seneca County Sheriff's Office, Seneca Falls Police Department, Waterloo Police Department, and the Interlaken Police Department. So once again, that county collaborative went above and beyond. It's not required, but we all say very beneficial for those of us that live here. So this is truly an interactive project and approach. And we talked about the elected leaders and the law enforcement agencies, but there are 3 other stakeholder groups that become critically important in this process. One is the Criminal Justice Advisory Board, and that's a group of people, leaders in this county, that convene and meet regarding issues such as this. There's a Criminal Justice Advisory Board Police Reform Subcommittee, a smaller group that's working to see this project through. And then, as we're here tonight, the general public forums, general public input and information. Even if people aren't here, they can view it on Figure Lakes 1, they can archive the presentation, they can also participate via Zoom. So it's our interest to make sure as many people are aware as possible. And as you can see, here's the opt-in partners. And once again, this doesn't happen everywhere, but it happened in Seneca County, that these 4 agencies have come together around the organization of this process. So I spoke a minute ago about the Criminal Justice Advisory Board, and as you can see here, there's a large list of people. But it also speaks to representation of all of us that live in this county. We're fairly well represented on that Criminal Justice Advisory Board, working with the law enforcement agencies. Elected and appointed officials are an important stakeholder group in this process because they're actually the ones that have the responsibilities to present this plan to their governing body for approval. So once again, they become an important stakeholder group, and you can see the elected and appointed officials that have a vested interest in this process. Okay. So each of those stakeholder groups have roles and responsibilities. As we said, the local government leader is responsible to make sure that the plan is developed and presented to the governing body, and is actually responsible for making sure that gets submitted to New York State by April 1st, 2021. The middle line there, the law enforcement leadership, is the group that's drafting the plan that includes the required elements that we talked about earlier and includes resident participation and input. The core working group down below, as we talked earlier on the previous screen, the Criminal Justice Advisory Board subgroup, is to ensure that the program plan is developed and executed in a collaborative manner. Not just a document that sits on a shelf and it's an exercise so that we say we got it done. They want it to be a living document. The Criminal Justice Advisory Board is the overseer of the 10-month process. They also assure that the plan is representative of the entire community that it's written for. And then you see the stakeholder groups, and there are many in this county. They are ambassadors of the project to the community. Once again, they provide input towards the recommendations that take place. So once these plans are completed, they need to be rolled out in each community. And it becomes important for the stakeholder groups to be aware of them so that they can understand. And then finally, the general public and the residents, and that's their input, feedback, and information, and we're at a critical point in the process during this week and this month to get that information. So you're here tonight, you'll be able to offer comments. There are a few people here taking notes regarding things that you say. We're also going to direct you to a survey that you can take online, and we have hard copies here if you'd prefer to do a hard copy survey. Monday night we did a presentation in Ovid, and between Monday and Wednesday, 385 surveys were returned, and that was a great representation of this county. Last night we were in Seneca Falls, and we expect that quite a few more surveys will be completed. So by the end of the week, we hope we have a great representation in this county. We got a great start earlier in the week. So once again, we don't want you to leave without getting that survey. Deb Rickerson in the back has those. She has a little post-it on there on how you can return it. And before you leave, we're going to also tell you how to access that online. So what do we need from you? If you look at the statement in the brown box there, it says law enforcement agencies are enthusiastically entering into a groundbreaking collaboration with the community to make real change happen. And as we spoke earlier, that goes both ways. It's not just law enforcement, it's also the community. So knowing that, in order to implement the reform plan development and changes, here's what we ask. People to attend forums, we say thank you to all of you. But when you leave, you can certainly share information that you've heard, and that would be very helpful to us. Complete the survey. Encourage others to complete the survey. Be aware of policies, procedures. Be aware of cultural issues in your community. Be aware of marginalized community members or people that you think don't have a voice. This is the time that we would like to hear a voice. So once again, you may be representing that voice or just sharing information from your perspective. Remember, the goal of this process is to develop a reform plan that meets the needs and interests of each community. So the timeline, and I know the print is small, you'll be able to see it when we post it, but basically I'll give you an overview. Obviously it was signed into law in June, but in July and August, as we said, the law enforcement leaders organized, created the Seneca County Collaborative. September, which is where we are now, we're looking for resident input, comments, and feedback. October will be used to review the results from the forums and from the surveys. And as I said earlier, we're expecting a good amount of surveys returned, so they will need a good 3 to 4 weeks to sift through that, and the plan would be to post those results later in October. Caitlin, maybe talk about where they would go to see that.
We're going to be posting them on the county website towards the end of the month of October once those results are released.
So we're asking about the 24th or 25th, you can start looking for that on the county website, feedback from the community. So November would be plan development time with representative and required elements put into place. That plan would then be presented to the governing bodies and with any good fortune be able to move forward early next year. This is showing February. The idea with the February approval at each community level means that these operational plans can be rolled out and start to take shape and be implemented within each community. So the goal is to share and implement these operational plans within each community. There'll be elements that are county best practices, but there'll be elements that are particular to Waterloo, or particular to Seneca Falls, or particular to Interlaken. So once again, or particular to the county, okay? Questions or comments? Okay. So up here it says that the participating law enforcement agencies, by participating in this initiative, agree to include the following in the plans. Community interactions, operational policies and procedures, recruitment, training, transparency and accountability, and equality and social justice. That becomes an important part. That agreement is by moving forward, we agree to make sure that those are evident in the plan. Now we're also fortunate in Seneca practice, and in my previous role as a superintendent, I was well aware of this as well, but all county residents should be well aware of the strong partnership between our law enforcement agencies and our mental health department. They have a strong, existing, and very supportive partnership that allows for necessary and proper responses to a wide array of situations that occur. As we can all understand, every situation is different, unique, requires a different response. That partnership is strong in this county, and it's based on communication, trust, and a strong partnership. So once again, that is something that we carry into this that already exists, such as this gentleman said, we have strong law enforcement departments. We carry that into these plans, and we look to continue to improve and enhance. So what's not in the scope of the initiative? These things are not. Implementation of changes to the civil service system, the judicial and the court system, economic disparities, housing disparities, educational disparities, healthcare disparities, mental health and social services disparities. These are state initiatives. They're not in this initiative the way it is. Okay? So as we said earlier, in order to be successful, we need stakeholder and community resident participation. Your presence here speaks volumes to that. But we also need a collaborative environment that's accepting of change and improvement. We said it the first 2 nights. Looking to improve in maybe 10 years ago might have been seen as a weakness. Nowadays it's seen as a strength. So the thing is, it's that statement of we want to be good at one thing, getting better. And that continual improvement process, I think, is what this gentleman talked about earlier. We carry our strengths into this plan process. So you can see tonight's the third of 3 forums, and we've had great representation at each of them. Great questions, great comments, great interaction. And we'll open the floor in a minute for that. No, that's fine. So what's next? We're going to ask everyone to complete the stakeholder survey within 7 days. What is the actual time that will be left online until?
October 10th.
October 10th. So it's actually a little more than that. So you have almost 2 weeks to get that done. Then we'll be collecting data. Each agency will review and interpret the data. And then they develop a plan for their own community. That's where the collaborative, and they start to break away and really work on the culture of their own communities. A draft of the plan will be presented to each municipality for feedback. So first run through. And then it will be submitted, once it's firmed up, it will be submitted to the local legislature for approval. And as we said, hopefully shortly into the new year, with any good fortune by February, it's all completed, approved, submitted, and then by March and April, we're rolling these things out so that everybody has an awareness. And that way, it's in the governor's office and completed. So the survey asks a number of questions, and some of them have ratings with them that you'll be able to just rate different questions. We're really looking for your thoughts around the following. How effective is your local law enforcement at combating crime in your neighborhood? So there's an opportunity to express your thoughts. How do you view your local law enforcement? How well does your local law enforcement conduct community policing? What does your local law enforcement do well? What, if anything, does your local law enforcement need to improve? What more would you like your local law enforcement agency to offer to the community? So start thinking around those kind of questions, and those are the things that are on the survey that we will be looking for your feedback, okay? So with that, we are going to open the floor. I don't know if anybody wants to offer any other insights that maybe I might have missed, but we certainly would welcome comments and questions or comments from the
I'd just like to put out there that the survey is very important, and I look forward to that because we can always improve, and there's a lot of smart people in this county, and they're going to come up with ideas that we'd be able to do or implement very easily, probably. And we need honesty and really do the survey. I mean, if you know anybody, talk to them. Have everybody do the survey.
It depends on that person, what his person or her person is of law enforcement. Now you know there are people that hate you guys. They don't like what's going on with certain things. And those are the ones that I don't pay attention to them because they're negative and they're not telling what it is like.
It gives them the opportunity, though, to tell us what it is that they don't like specifically. And it gives us the opportunity to review some of that information and implement it out there so we can improve those relationships. So it is important to hear back from those. And I get what you're saying, but we want to hear all sides of the coin.
I've dealt with 24 years, I've dealt with people arrested and improved. robbing and stealing, and it's come to a point where I made a mistake. I shouldn't have been that hard on it. But when that individual was going to throw a punch at me or pull out a weapon, all bets are off. I'm going to take that person out. And that's it. I'm not going to get hurt because I've got some idiot that wants to hurt me. I mean, I don't, you know, it's just.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and we have, policies in place for use of force. We're doing the right thing. We're using the minimum amount of force necessary to get the guy into custody. All those pieces are there.
Other questions, comments from the panel? Yes.
Yeah, my name's Dan Scott, and I work for Seneca County, as well as services right now. So I come in contact with a lot of people who have a lot of engagement with police, and a couple of things stick out to me. And I don't think there's anything the police are doing wrong or they can do about it because it's cultural. If you got money, your chances of being involved with police actions are much slimmer than they are if you don't have anything. And what I would like to ask is how much consideration is being given to a change in demographics that has happened in Seneca County, well, since I've been a resident here for 22 years. Because I noticed many more people of color are in our communities, many more people from different places. And I'm not seeing, like I said, I deal a lot with police, and I don't know a single police in Seneca County of color. I could be wrong, because I don't know y'all. Okay, but I want to know if that is being considered.
So we do work very closely with Margaret North Mental Health.
Yeah.
And she has put us in touch with a lot of options for scenarios that you're talking about. We're training officers specifically to deal with mental health of people in crisis more effectively, more efficiently. So we are making progressive steps in that direction. We're always looking for ways to improve. We meet monthly to discuss options and different ways of handling the situations better, and making sure we're training our officers to meet those standards.
I have to say I've been with people when they've been mental health arrested several times, and it was handled very professionally, very well, with no risk. If anybody can come in, everybody's very impressed with how things happen. So, and I applaud that collaboration with mental health and policing, because so much of what you deal with is, comes out of mental health convictions. Right, so you have to be, as police, you have to be very aware of that. You have to be putting judgments aside, right, to deal directly with the people.
So Ann, if I could,
Yeah.
you also brought up the question about recruitment efforts,
Yeah.
correct? So I don't know, Stu?
Yeah, so all law enforcement is obligated in New York State by civil service rules. There's a slide in here that you saw of things that we can't change. That's one of them. I don't know of one law enforcement leader that wouldn't like to change some of the outlining rules of civil service and how that applies, with either to terminate an employee that's a problem employee immediately, or hiring process. So one thing that we're obligated to do is we have to start at the top of the list and work our way down, and we're obligated with the top 3 to either have them hire them, have them fail physical agility or some sort of background investigation. If they don't, we're obligated with that top 3 of that list. Just because they score a 95 on the law enforcement exam, the entry-level law enforcement exam, doesn't mean that they're going to be a good cop. So we've been working to try to get civil service rules changed in New York State where it's a pass-fail. But until that happens, we're obligated to take with who takes the test, who can pass the agility test, who can pass the very extensive background investigation that's done on, the polygraph, the psychological exam, all these different things play into effect before we actually choose to hire somebody. And that's before they even hit the academy.
Right.
So there's, a lot of those things that you spoke of, we're kind of bound on that. civil service rules.
Frustrating.
It is.
And with the recruitment part, it's hard right now, as you can imagine, to recruit people in to this job.
Right
It's
now.
not desirable right now.
Yeah.
But we do work very closely with our school districts. I know all agencies do. We work with them with Law Day. We work with them with the colleges, with internships, and bringing people in and showing them what the job is. I know I came from an internship. The sergeants in the back room came from an internship. That's kind of how you get your foot in the door. We always continue those processes and try to bring people in, attend job fairs. We're always there trying to recruit people in.
So Ann, if I could just share also that I know that all the schools in the Finger Lakes participate in career and technical education, where the students go to the center in Stanley. They have a very effective criminal justice program. So I think over time, starting that way with education could be more reflective of the demographics in this community to be able to recruit people that are right in this county as they work through their educational process.
I just want to, I want to be aware that other people are thinking that
Yep.
way.
Great
That
question.
our community has changed,
Yep.
and we need to change
Great question.
with it. I mean, being a little old white lady, when I get pulled over because something's not working on my car or something, boy, do I get treated nice. Really, but I know that it's not necessarily always the way. So we need to be aware of that.
Did you have another question? Did you have another question?
Oh, that was the important one.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions or comments? Anybody from the panel? Okay.
I just wanted to say really quick, so I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. If no one else has any other questions, just pay attention. We are going to have a meeting specific for the village of Waterloo coming up in the future, and these guys will have in their jurisdictions too. In that time, please fill out those flyers, get the information out, so we can review those and see where we need to go. Again, thank you guys for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it.
So before we break up, we're going to review how you can get that, and then we'll hang around if you want to ask individual questions. That would be great. But as we said, the survey is online until October 10th. We're going to put the slides and the survey results up probably towards the end of October. The printed surveys are in the back with Deb, and they need to be returned by the same.
Right around October 10th.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay.
The
So.
online surveys, I believe, are on each individual law enforcement agency website. So you can go to the individual website and click on the survey.
Yep.
Don't necessarily have to go to the website that serves you and serves and protects you where you live. You can go to any of them. It doesn't really matter. Just click on it and you'll follow the prompts from there to answer the questions.
Right. And don't hesitate to take an extra one with you tonight if you want to give it to a neighbor or someone else that you know. Okay, so we'll hang around. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Appreciate it. So feel free to interact or ask questions, and it looks like there's some water.